3 weeks. That is all that remains before the biggest World Cup in football history officially begins. 48 teams, 3 countries, 16 host cities, a tournament FIFA promised would change football forever. But across America, something feels wrong. Hotels are sitting half empty. Flights are not filling fast enough. Restaurants that expected international crowds are suddenly lowering prices. And some World Cup host cities are quietly preparing for a possibility nobody at FIFA wants to talk about publicly. What if the fans never arrive? Because this is not just a story about tourism. This is a story about expectations collapsing in real time. For years, FIFA sold the 2026 World Cup as an unstoppable economic explosion. Cities invested hundreds of millions, preparing for massive international demand. Local businesses hired extra staff. Hotels blocked entire floors months in advance. They expected chaos. Instead, many are seeing uncertainty. And the timing could not be worse. Because the problems are no longer isolated. Visa delays, extreme summer heat, overpriced travel, complicated flight routes, hotel contracts quietly collapsing behind the scenes. One by one, the warning signs are starting to connect together. And suddenly, the biggest World Cup ever created is facing a terrifying question. Did FIFA massively overestimate how many people actually wanted to come? At first, the warning signs were easy to dismiss. A slower booking week here, a few unsold hotel blocks there, nothing unusual. Every major sporting event experiences fluctuations before kickoff. But then the numbers kept getting worse and worse. In city after city, hotel managers began reporting the same uncomfortable pattern. International demand was tracking below forecasts, not slightly below, far below. Some hotels near major stadiums were reportedly performing worse than a normal summer without a World Cup at all. That is almost impossible to imagine because World Cups are supposed to overwhelm cities. Brazil 2014 transformed entire regions into non-stop football festivals. Russia 2018 shattered expectations for international attendance. Even Qatar, despite controversy, still created massive global movement. But America is different, and FIFA may have underestimated just how different. The United States is enormous. Travel between host cities is expensive. Domestic flights are costly. Public transportation between venues barely exists compared to Europe. And for many international supporters, especially from South America, Africa, and parts of Asia, attending this tournament is becoming financially brutal. Flights, hotels, internal travel, visa applications, match tickets, food transport. One fan following their national team through the knockout stages could easily spend thousands upon thousands of dollars. And suddenly, the dream starts feeling unreachable. But money was only the beginning, because then FIFA ran into a problem even more dangerous: access. For many supporters around the world, the hardest part of attending the World Cup is no longer buying tickets. It is simply getting into the country, and that changes everything. The modern World Cup survives on traveling fans: Argentinian supporters, Mexican supporters, Dutch supporters, Moroccan supporters, Brazilian supporters. They create the atmosphere people remember forever. Without them, the tournament loses its soul. But America's visa system is now becoming one of the biggest geopolitical stories surrounding the competition. Long processing times, appointment backlogs, travel uncertainty, fans unsure whether approval will arrive before kickoff. And unlike previous tournaments, many supporters cannot simply book a cheap train or short regional flight at the last minute. This requires major financial commitment months in advance, and uncertainty kills bookings. A supporter in Europe might hesitate. A supporter in Africa may give up entirely. A family in South America could decide the risk is simply too high, because nobody wants to spend thousands preparing for a trip that immigration complications might destroy. And here is the problem FIFA cannot easily solve. This is not about football anymore. This is about government systems, politics, security policy, international relations. The tournament is colliding directly with real-world bureaucracy. And the closer kickoff gets, the more nervous host cities are becoming. But one city exposed the problem more clearly than any other: Kansas City. On paper, Kansas City should have been a success story. 9 matches, a quarterfinal. One of America's most famous stadiums. Years of preparation, massive local investment. Instead, it became one of the loudest warning signs of the entire tournament. Because reports began emerging that hotels were tracking below even normal summer expectations, not below World Cup expectations, below ordinary expectations, and that is devastating for local businesses. Restaurants hired extra workers, bars expanded operations, hotels increased staffing, entire economic plans were built around FIFA's projections. Now many are quietly preparing for something completely different. Disappointment. And Kansas City revealed another uncomfortable truth. Not every American city is equally attractive to international supporters. European fans may dream of New York, Latin American fans may prioritize Miami or Los Angeles, but asking supporters to fly internationally and then take additional expensive domestic connections deep into the American interior creates another financial barrier, and suddenly the scale of this tournament becomes a weakness instead of a strength, because bigger is not always better. Sometimes bigger simply becomes harder. And then came the moment that genuinely shocked the hospitality industry. FIFA itself started backing away from hotel commitments. Months before kickoff, thousands of hotel rooms reserved by FIFA were suddenly released back into the market, quietly, without massive headlines. But inside the hospitality industry, people noticed immediately. Because many hotels had already blocked those rooms for months, other customers were turned away, and other events were rejected. Entire business strategies were built around guaranteed FIFA demand. And then suddenly, the rooms were no longer needed. That created a dangerous perception. What if FIFA itself realized the demand projections were too optimistic? And once that fear entered the conversation, confidence started slipping fast, because mega events rely heavily on momentum psychology. Cities need to believe fans are coming. Businesses need confidence. Sponsors need excitement. The moment uncertainty appears, everyone becomes nervous at the same time, and perception matters enormously, especially for television, because if fan zones look thin, if stadium atmospheres feel quieter, if international supporter culture feels smaller than previous tournaments, the audience notices immediately, and FIFA knows that. But then things became even more serious, because now the weather itself is becoming part of the crisis. The Club World Cup rehearsal tournament exposed something alarming. Extreme American summer conditions may fundamentally affect the football itself. Heat, humidity, storm delays, lightning interruptions, player exhaustion, medical concerns, and nowhere represents that danger more than Dallas. Summer temperatures there can become brutal, not uncomfortable, dangerous. Fans standing outdoors for hours before matches could face genuine health risks. Players may struggle physically during afternoon kickoffs. Broadcasters could face weather disruptions during live matches. And suddenly, FIFA faces a scheduling nightmare because global television audiences want daytime and primetime games. But player safety may force organizers toward cooler evening kickoffs instead. And every schedule adjustment creates another logistical problem: transport. Security staffing, broadcast rights, crowd movement. The World Cup was supposed to showcase America's scale and spectacle. Instead, the environment itself is becoming an unpredictable opponent. And this is what makes the next few weeks so important, because the 2026 World Cup was never just another tournament. It was a test of whether football could truly dominate North America. A test of whether a 4-8-team expansion actually works. A test of whether a 3-country World Cup can still create the emotional atmosphere that made previous tournaments unforgettable. And right now, the results are uncertain. The late booking surge could still happen. Fans may still arrive in massive numbers. Football has always had the power to rescue itself once the games begin. One unforgettable opening ceremony, one iconic upset, one magical moment, and suddenly the atmosphere changes overnight. That is still possible, but the structural concerns are real. Cost, distance, visas, heat, overexpansion, these are not temporary problems. They are warnings about the future of football itself, because FIFA wanted the biggest World Cup ever created. Now it must prove that bigger does not also mean emptier. So what do you think? Will the late surge save the tournament? Or are these host cities about to experience the most overestimated World Cup in modern football history? Let me know in the comments, and subscribe for more football documentaries covering the politics, economics, and hidden stories behind the 2026 World Cup.